So, my name is Peter. I'm a brother of Sigma Pi, and this is my last quarter here at Cal Poly. I'm a fifth year, so that's pretty exciting. And I've always been really fascinated by TED Talks for the last couple years. So I've always kind of wanted to do something similar to a TED Talk, but my name isn't Ted, so it's a Peter Talk. I already used that one on my brothers. So tonight I'm going to talk about how our greatest adversary in life is oftentimes ourselves. Back thousands of years ago, when we were getting chased by lions and tigers and bears, we had this feeling in our brain that was like risk, danger, run away. And at that time, that was very handy. It kept us alive. But today, we're not really getting chased by lions and tigers and bears. So from a self-preservation standpoint, our brain does a great job at keeping us away from the risk that endangers us. But from a self-growth standpoint, it really hinders us in a lot of ways. So tonight, I want to talk about acknowledging and engaging our greatest enemy, which is our adversarial self. In 2013, there was a study that said that 36% of students reported feeling depressed. And that's just the people who reported feeling depressed. I feel like most people who are depressed probably don't admit to feeling depressed. So if there's, I don't know how many people are in here, 60 people in this room, that means that probably like 20 or 30 people at some point during college would feel depressed, which is definitely a significant amount. There's a TED Talk speaker. I don't know if you're allowed to reference TED Talks within a TED Talk, but this is a Peter Talk, so that's all good. So there's a TED Talk speaker named Andrew Solomon, and he was an author in psychology, and he gave a TED Talk that was titled Depression, the Secret We Share. And he said that the opposite of depression is not happiness, it is vitality. And vitality is basically our ability to live. When you think of like our vital organs, those are the organs that keep us alive. So really, depression is just a slower way of being dead, which is depressing. Well, that wasn't scripted. So it's really like a pretty tough thing to go through, depression. And he says, this is a quote from this Andrew Solomon. He says, "The people who deny their experience, the ones who say I was depressed a long time ago, and I never want to think about it again, and I'm not going to look at it, and I'm just going to get on with my life. Ironically, those are the people who are most enslaved by what they have. Shutting out the depression strengthens it. While you're hiding from it, it grows." So tonight's going to be more about just depression, but rather any discomfort that we experience in life. So the time that I experienced this the most memorable time that I had experiencing this was back in high school. There was this girl that I was into. She was like the first major crush I had, and I'm sure all of you who have had your first crush have been like head over heels, like it's amazing. So she was cool. I was my current girlfriend's here right now, so I can't say too much. But eventually we stopped talking because I didn't have the self-confidence to go out of my comfort zone and to make myself vulnerable enough to approach her with more than just small talk. I couldn't go one level deeper with her. And that really, I guess when things ended between like her and I, when we just like stopped talking, that's when I first had my real experience with depression. I had never felt depressed before, but that's the first time that I had experienced anything like depression. And let's see. Sorry, I lost my spot. Oh yeah, so basically I knew that what I needed to do to like talk to her or to date her was to be able to work up the courage, the self-confidence to approach her and make myself vulnerable. But I could never do that. And at the time that I realized that that's what I needed to do, it was already kind of too late, I felt like. But that was the first time that I had acknowledged this adversarial self of mine, this negative thought that I had about my self-esteem and about my ability to function as a person. And up until that point, it was easy. You know, I didn't have any reason to feel like this was hindering me in any way. But once I was prevented from talking to that girl, I was like, wow, this is actually preventing me from living life. And so, yeah, that was the first time that I actually acknowledged this adversarial self of me and that I needed to confront it. Now, fast forward a few years, this is a couple years back now. I was in a GE here at Cal Poly, and are there any English majors in here? No? Okay, so, but I'm not an English major, but I had this guy named Professor Hampsey, and he was, right, so somebody's had him before. This guy was a character. He despised Greek life, honestly. Like, anybody who wore letters to his lecture would just get roasted endlessly by him. And I'm not like super into reading or writing, but there were a few interesting things that I took away from this class. And the one that really stuck out to me that I want to share with you guys today is that the Hebrew word Satan, that word directly translates into adversarial self. So really, Satan is this adversarial self that I keep mentioning that lives inside of all of us. That is that voice that tells us we're not good enough, we can't do that. So really, we are our own greatest enemy, and whether you're religious or not religious, Satan or this adversarial self is inside of you. Like, there's always going to be that voice saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't come and talk at Greek Row or whatever. Like, there's other people that can talk up here. So so that really stood out to me. And oftentimes we identify a situation that's making us uncomfortable, and we know how we can fix it. For me, with this like high school crush of mine, I knew that I just had to work up the courage to have a real conversation with her. And first we have to acknowledge that we have this adversarial self that's preventing us from doing that, but we don't necessarily have to listen to what it's telling us. And so over Christmas break, I saw the movie Fight Club for the first time. This is kind of going off on a separate tangent, but has anybody in here seen Fight Club? Alright, it's a sweet movie. You all have to watch it if you haven't. But I was watching it with my girlfriend and her dad, and there were some scenes in there that were pretty uncomfortable watching it with her dad. But the movie was awesome. Like, it was such a good movie. So I went home and I was raving about it to my family and stuff, and my mom's like, oh, we should watch it. So I watched it with my mom. If there's one thing that's more uncomfortable than watching it with your girlfriend's dad, it's watching it with your mom. But anyways, there's this one scene that really stuck out to me in that movie, and I didn't want to share a YouTube link because it's kind of like vulgar and all that. But so if you have seen the movie, just like keep in mind the relationship between the two main characters, but you don't have to watch the movie for this to make sense. So there's two characters. There's Tyler Durden, and then there's Jack, who's the main character, the narrator. And so Tyler takes Jack's hand and he gets it wet and he dumps this chemical called lye on it, which is a pretty gnarly base chemical. I don't know if you guys know about like the pH scale chemistry. Okay, so anyways, so he dumps this chemical on his hand and he's getting this super gnarly chemical burn. And Jack, who's the guy getting the chemical burn, he doesn't know how to cope with the pain. So he kind of shuts it out. He tries meditating. He tries to do anything to get his mind off of the pain, to not think about it. And then Tyler basically yells at him. He says, "Stop. This is your burning hand. This is your pain. It's right here." And Jack's like still, his mind is off somewhere else. He's begging for water to get the pain out of here. And then eventually he comes to grips with the reality that his hand is on fire and he needs to like really face the situation. Like there's no hiding it, no matter how hard you try to cope with the situation. And so finally, after realizing that he is in all of this discomfort, Tyler takes the vinegar and dumps it on his hand, which vinegar is an acid, reacts with the base, and it neutralizes it. If Jack had decided to use water, it would have made the burning worse because chemistry and stuff, but I don't want to get too much into it. But basically, like, water is a neutral chemical. It has... So water's neither a base nor an acid, and it would have made the burning worse. So there's a few things that I want to kind of analyze about this scene. First, the narrator tries to cope with his problems using coping mechanisms like meditation. And while these are all useful in certain situations in life, you shouldn't be sweeping your problems under the rug. You shouldn't be trying to take your mind off of the pain that you're experiencing in life. Because so often there are things that make us uncomfortable, like, wow, I really should be focusing more on my schoolwork. I really should be focusing more on my relationships with my family members. But I'm gonna deal with that later. For now, I'm gonna watch Netflix, or I'm gonna peruse through Facebook, or I'm gonna go binge drink with the homies. And those are all coping mechanisms when they can be useful sometimes, but not to sweep your problems under the rug, not to take your mind off of the pain, which is just gonna continue to get worse and worse. And so finally, we have to learn to face that discomfort that we're experiencing, that pain. And finally, you can't just be kind of like neutral towards it once you do acknowledge it. You have to fight it with vinegar. You have to fight it with like the opposite attack. Like you have to really grind it into it to fix the solution. You can't be like putting a, half butt attempt at fixing the solution. You have to like really get into it and really fix it. So let's see. So going back to my personal story back in high school with that girl, the girl was long gone. I wasn't gonna ever talk to her, but the thing is I realized that my self-worth and my self-esteem and my ability to be vulnerable with people needed to improve. And so from that moment, I needed to make a change. And it wasn't gonna be some half-butt attempt at making a change. I really had to jump in head first with it. And so at that point, I decided to join the baseball team, even though I'd never played baseball before. I like made a really big effort, like during lunch breaks and passing periods and all that stuff, like go and talk to people that I had never met before. Go out of my way to go and meet people, expand my social skills, and really build my self-esteem up. Because I knew that in the long run, that trend, if I never acknowledged that I have a self-esteem problem, and if I never really tried to fix the solution, that would have just gotten worse. And so that's why I went out of my way to go do that. And I knew that even though at times I felt uncomfortable approaching people that I wasn't good friends with, I just had to do it because that's how I had to get out of my comfort zone to fix the situation. Go ahead and change the slide. So, anybody know what this is? It's a water pump. This one in particular is called a pitcher pump. It's like a old school water pump, but in order to get water out of it, you gotta pump it. You gotta put it in work. But before you can get any water out of it, you have to do what's called priming the pump. That phrase has been made famous by Donald Trump recently, but it actually came from this. So you prime the pump by putting water in through this top hole right here. And then as you're pumping the water through there, it begins to suck the water out of the ground. So the thing is that you have to put in something before you can get something out. For me, I had to put in the effort of going and talking to people that I didn't really know. It put me outside my comfort zone, but I knew that I needed to do that in order to get what I wanted, which was an increased self-esteem. And this is true for anything. Like, so often we're like, oh, boss, just give me the raise, and then I promise after that raise, I'll start putting in the effort, like I'll really perform. Or like, professor, give me the passing grade this time. Next quarter, I promise I'll study more for your class. I mean, this is everywhere. You could, even in faith too, like, Lord, just give me the grace now, the grace to have your blessing, and then I'll praise your name later. Or show me forgiveness now for my sins, and then next time I'll experience the conviction for doing wrong. And then the other thing that I want to talk about this water pump is once you've got it primed, once you've put in the effort, you got to keep pumping, because the water level, I don't think it's actually built into the ground, but imagine it is. The water level could be here, or it could be way down here. You could be pumping for 10 more seconds, or you could be pumping for 20 more minutes. You don't really know. And that's the thing, is you might not see the results of your labor right away, but you have to have the faith that it's going to be coming. Even though right away I didn't probably feel a boosted self-esteem from going and talking to all these people at school, I'm up here speaking to you guys tonight, so I think that shows that after a while I was able to pump and have the courage to come up and talk to you guys. And this is true for a lot of things. I think the most common one that I hear of, at least, is people being like, oh, I need to make a healthy lifestyle change. I need to start dieting. I need to start working out. They go to the gym for 2 weeks, usually around January 1st. And then you don't see the results right away. You're not this like Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. And so you give up. And you're like, well, working out isn't for me, or dieting isn't for me. It's not going to work. But the thing is you have to keep pumping. In this case, literally, like pumping that iron. Like, you gotta keep pumping. And eventually, you will see the results of that effort that you're putting in. And let's see. Sorry, I lost my spot again. So yeah, this has been a continuous journey for me, building up my self-esteem. And I think this is actually, probably the last Greek Row meeting that I'll be coming to. This is my last quarter at Cal Poly. And I've been coming to Greek Row for a few years now, and I've always been so inspired. I felt so built up by this community, because not many people can experience the stresses and the joys of being in Greek life, as well as the stresses and joys of being Christian. It's kind of like a weird combination, but this is a cool community where we get to come and discuss that sort of mingling. But so I always knew that, like, it's such a cool area, or such a cool meeting, and it'd be sweet if I could talk to these people. But we have Annalisa over here, or we have Blake. We have like all these other people who are on the Greek Row leadership team who are willing to step up. They're probably better talkers than I am. Maybe I shouldn't do it. What if people judge me? There's all this self-doubt and fear, and really, that's just my adversarial self talking to me. And those are my own thoughts, and those don't mean anything. So it's been a continuous journey, and it's not easy at times, but I've continued to put in the work. I've continued to pump that water pump, because I know that at the end of the road, it'll be so worth it. And that's what we got to do with everything in our life. And when it comes to spirituality, there's all sorts of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD. there's all this concern around spirituality, like, oh, is God real? Is he not? You know, why do all these crappy things happen to me if there's a God that loves me? There's all sorts of like weird paradoxes with it. But the thing with this duality is, you know, you can't have light without the dark, you can't have comfort without the discomfort, and you can't have faith without the doubt. So really we have to confront those doubts, and we have to acknowledge that we have these doubts because we're human, and then we have to put in the work in order to build up our faith. And the trouble with all of this that I'm saying tonight is that we think that we have time. We think that, oh, tomorrow I'll hit the gym, tomorrow I'll open up the Bible, tomorrow I'll go and talk to my parents and try to rebuild our relationship. And we don't know that we have time. You know, for whatever reason, you could be off tomorrow, which is, you know, it's just the reality of the situation. So we have to take advantage of today. We have to take advantage of the present moment and really start to confront those issues. And I guess this is a good example because this is my last Greek row meeting, and so I never would have had another opportunity to come and talk tonight, or talk at a Greek row meeting. Luckily I was able to put those adversarial self-thoughts out of the way and come up here. And yeah, it's actually funny, as I was texting Annalisa this one time, like when I texted her saying that I want to speak at Greek row, literally it would have taken 5 seconds to be like, I want to speak at Greek row and send it, because I'm a really fast texter and stuff. But it took me honestly probably like 5 or 10 minutes, because I was like, oh shoot, like I don't know if I've got what it takes. It was all these thoughts that kept springing up in my mind, like, oh, somebody else could just talk. And it was my adversarial self trying to put me down, trying to say, you're not going to do this. And I had to brush that off to the side and just hit the send button and say, I am going to do this. And so this is, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, probably, but it's Black Awareness Month. And, not Black Awareness Month. We're gonna cut this talk off right now. Anyways, this is a quote from Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King is, in my opinion, one of the most inspirational people I know from history. This is a quote from him. He says, "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." And so the thing is, we don't know where the staircase is going to lead us, but we know where we're going to go. And we have to have faith that that staircase is going directly to where we want to be. And so we have to build up the courage to take that first step, to climb the staircase. And we have to have the courage to keep climbing the staircase. And go ahead and switch the slide. So this is a verse from Isaiah that I thought was pretty applicable. It says, "Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives his strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." So the thing is, we all have this Satan inside of us, this adversarial self that keeps wanting to put us down, keeps saying, no, this is risky, don't do that. But we also have the voice of God within us, and if we listen to that voice, we will soar on wings like eagles. We will run and not grow weary. We will walk and not be faint. So we just have to have faith that, faith in the voice inside of us, the voice of God, that is true. And the thing is our vices, our struggles, our insecurities, those will never go away, no matter how hard you try. I still struggle with self-esteem issues. I guess if I talked in front of a group much larger than this, I'd probably freak out, have an anxiety attack or something. And especially if I wanted to be a TED talker, I'd be down for the count. And so the thing is, we will always have this little voice in the back of our mind saying, you can't do this, it's too risky, you're not good enough. But the thing is, we just gotta keep pumping that water pump, and eventually our effort will be worth it. We'll reap those rewards. So I just want to end on this note saying that everybody in this room, that we are all worthy, we are all loved, and we are all capable. Thank you.